So hi everyone, hope you had a great lunch and let's start. So a bit about me, I'm Hrittik Roy. I'm flying from Kolkata for this event. So I'm a platform advocate at Law Labs, a Google Venkat Scholar, a CNCF ambassador, and I'm just completing my undergrad right now. So I work at a company called Law Labs, and we have a couple of products. One is DevPod, vCluster, DevSpace. So all of them are open source. So today I will focus on the first one, DevPod. A bit about vCluster and DevSpace. vCluster is a multi-tenancy solution which you can use to virtualize your Kubernetes clusters so that you can save cost. So let's talk about how traditionally things were. So raise your hands if you have faced this problem in your company. Like you have a big project and your office laptop can't support it, or it's taking a lot of time to build. Anyone? Yeah, that will be a very common problem because it's a thing we are trying to solve right now. Apart from this problem, there were another problems when you are onboarding new developers, as well as when you are focusing on streamlining your developer experience. The first one was, like, you didn't have any declarative manifest so that everything can be automated and built. You had your documentation, you had your instructions, but apart from that, there was nothing which you can use to automate the following. Then you have isolation. So for example, you can use virtual environments in Python and a lot more things, but you don't have an automated way to do that. For sure, you can use Docker and something like that, but for that, you need to run the commands. So there was isolation missing, and also there was a version dependency as well. The next one is, as we discussed, like managing your dependencies across your different code bases. So as a developer, you will work on different projects and different parts of a project or a platform. So you need to manage a couple of dependencies over there. So that is also quite hard with it. The fourth one is portability. So now, for example, if you are running a thing on your local machine and you want to move all the project to cloud so that you have more infra, so that you can run big HPC or AI/ML projects over there, because you have limited compute on your local machine. That was also very hard traditionally. And next is repeatability. So you can repeat your deployment infra with Terraform and all those things, but how will you repeat your development environment in which you are building your tools? That is a problem which is also there. And last is, as we discussed, cloud power. If you want a powerful hardware, the only option you have is to buy a more powerful laptop. Traditionally, you need to change your laptop every 2 years to stay updated with the latest changes. And it is especially true with people who are learning, like for example, students who are learning. They don't have a powerful laptop. They want something to do with, like for example, Kubernetes. They want to run a Kubernetes cluster locally and deploy something over there. Running a cluster is very easy. You can use anything over there. Like for example, if you are deploying something over there, you will see your laptop to lag. So the solution is to focus on developer experience so that we can have new candidates onboarding to the projects easily, and as well as people having more power. So how do we do that? We don't focus on everything at once. We focus on automating things. So here something from Microsoft comes in, which is called devcontainers. So devcontainer is a standard which defines your workspace. Like if you see over there, you can see what version of Python you are using, what extensions are there, and what commands will run whenever you create a workspace. Also, it is an open source specification, so you can mold it to any tool you want. Technically, GitHub Codespaces uses it behind the scenes, and there is something called DevPod, which we have built, also uses this. So let's understand the architecture where DevPod and devcontainers come in. In a production container, you remove all the things which is not necessary to build and everything. But in a development container, you will require all the SDKs, all the compilers, all your debuggers and everything. For your production container, you will remove all those. Just you will have your compiled application so that you can focus on better security. But in a dev container, you can have all those because you are focusing on building the things. So now the question is, dev containers are awesome. So how you can use the dev containers? So coming back to the point, I'm introducing you to DevPod. So DevPod is a tool which we just launched last year. It's an open source tool. It's a client-side tool. Like you run an application or a CLI on your local machine, which will help you to connect to your cloud, or you can run that thing locally for isolation. It's very unopinionated. Like for example, you can use different IDEs, different providers, and different tech stack. That works. And we are on a growth. Like we have seen a huge amount of community adoption. We just started last year, and now we have around 6.7 thousand stars. It is growing rapidly, and as discussed, it ships as a desktop app as well as a CLI. So depending upon what you want, you can use it. And next is how we diversify the things inside our pods. Like first is workspaces. So like for example, if you have different projects, you can have different workspaces for each project, so that you have isolation between the projects, as well as each of the projects are running as a container. The container can run anywhere, in your local machine or on cloud. So if you just create for some isolation, your local machine works. But if you are craving for some more power, you can just host those workloads on the cloud. We offer start-stop functionalities to save cost, and also like you can add a lot of extensions over there, which we are still building on. So the start-stop functionality is very beneficial when you are trying to save cost. Like for example, if you don't want your cloud resources to running all the time, so there is where, like if there is an inactivity in your local machine while you are developing something, you can just make sure that it stops whenever you are not using. Suppose you went to chat with a friend, it will stop in 30 minutes because you are not using. And whenever you want to use it, you can use and restart that. So the concept which powers all of those things are providers. So what providers are is a way to connect to the cloud or your local machine so that you can host your development workloads over there. So currently we have a couple of workloads with GCP, Azure, and all those things. So we can switch the benefits over the flexibility. And the last is you can create your own providers as well. Suppose you have a specific cloud which needs some specific provider, you can create provider. So that is a simple YAML file which you can create and make sure that works. So currently, another achievement we had was like we have 10 community providers. So people have a lot of community adoption. Like for example, if you are using some specific provider like Equinix, you don't need to write a lot of code or anything. You can just create a YAML file and make sure your workloads are running on the cloud on your surface plans so that you are saving costs over there as well. Next is provisioning process. So how do you provision an environment? How do you provision a workspace? So the steps are very simple. First, initialize your provider, like initialize your connection to the cloud. Second is create a VM which is happening automatically in the background. So you don't need to do anything over there. Next is create a dev container. So dev container is a specification, like it's a JSON which defines how your workspaces are created. But suppose you don't have the energy to create a dev container. It by default understands what code you are using, like what language you are using, and creates a dev container with the base image of that language. And then you can launch and connect it with your IDE. IDEs can be anything, like VS Code, your JetBrains, or anything like that. So let's understand the architecture a bit, it might be helpful. So there are a couple of things in the picture. So DevPod is at first we have the DevPod agent that sits on your VM or your container. It makes sure that you are creating workspaces and everything over there. And then the DevPod client is creating a SSH remote connection and managing the flow of data between the both so that you are running your application and commands over there. And then suppose you are a front-end application, you want that to be port forwarded. It is very much possible using VS Code also, but we also have the option to port forward it internally. Next is use cases. Like, where is this useful actually? Like, everything looks very good, but where can we use this thing? So there are a lot of use cases. First is cost saving. Like technically there are a lot of tools where there's a lot of cost associated. Like for example, if you are using some proprietary CDs, cloud development environments, the costs are generally 5 to 10 times higher. So if you are doing that on raw cloud, the costs are very much saved. Next is fast onboarding for your teammates. So this is something which all the CDs feature. And the next is cloud power when required. So as there is a saving, there is also more cloud power to you. Next is how can you use the tool? So it is very simple. You can just go to DevPod and download it. It's a client-side tool, so it's a desktop application, or you can use a CLI as well. Add your providers. It can be a local or Docker provider, or also a container cloud, and you can launch your dev containers. So what we can take back from the talk is like CDs can be helpful. There is a easier barrier to entry for new contributors because they can have a more powerful machine in their hands. The last is, these are some of the tweets which I found last night while I was adding some adoption things. So yeah, people are using it, people are loving it, and if you want to know more about those, so you can feel free to join our Slack community. And also I put some stickers over there, so you can just get some DevPod stickers. And
people have taken
okay, so I will add more over there. So yeah, that is it. I didn't run late. Thank you for joining me. These are our socials if you want to connect. And if you have any more questions on implementation or anything like that, you can either reach out to me on my socials or I'm here. That also works. Thank you, everyone.